Gentlemen, welcome to the Brewcast. This is episode, I don't know what episode this is. I think this might be 56. Today we're going to be talking about Anthony Joshua, the I think IBF heavyweight champion, and whether I think he's on steroids or not. Obviously, for clickbait reasons, it's called "Is he on steroids?" But obviously, any sort of PEDs would class as steroids, given the context of this video. Before we get started, if you guys enjoy this video, enjoy the general content, please go check out the Brewcast. We talk about all sorts of things. We've got Natty or Nots on MMA fighters like Paulo Costa, like Kamaru Usman, like Francis Ngannou. We also do fight predictions when big fights come up. For example, we did one on the Gaethje versus Khabib fight. We did one on the Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor fight. We also talk more generally about sort of the philosophy of being high test men, being real men, the impact of that in society, the view of men being competent in society. And then last thing before we get started, if you guys are interested, please go check out the Brewcast merch shop. Our new line of apparel, the Look at My Fucking Guns shirts, hoodies and tank tops are available now. Now, Look at My Fucking Guns is a twofold description of your testosterone. Okay, firstly, the guns, the arms are there because we believe in developing the body and being jacked and juicy. And secondly, the actual guns are there because we also believe in your right to protect yourself and your family members with the weapon if so necessary. Now, let's get started with the video. So, Anthony Joshua, right, heavyweight champion. He weighs in at about 240 pounds. He's 6'6". Almost definitely, I would say, 10% body fat in his fights, if not less. I'm going to be conservative to give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? Anthony is a large boy. He is a large man. He's by no means small. Now, here's the problem. There's this misconception that other boxers have made that he trains like a bodybuilder, and this is why he's not a good boxer. I disagree. Some people say the reason why he's so jacked is because he trains so well and he's very strong. I have to disagree, and here's where the problem comes into. Okay, Anthony's physique, although he is huge, and especially for a 6'6" guy, isn't necessarily unachievable. His fat-free mass index, which essentially is a measurement of how jacked you are, is around 24. Right now, 24 is achievable naturally. You guys can look this up. Generally speaking, 21 is your average gym bro. 22 is pretty good. Very genetically good. 23 is very genetically good, and you can get you some low use steroid users you'll find in that region. 24 is extremely good and unlikely to be natural. 25 is generally considered the limit, although you do get very rare guys who, you know, allegedly are over an FFMI of 25. Anthony is right around 24, 24 and a half. And so his physique isn't necessarily unachievable, even though it is really hard. But my problem here is that you wouldn't expect to see the sort of physique on a guy who trains like he does. He trains for boxing, and people say he focuses a lot on muscle development, but he doesn't. His max deadlift, right? The best video I've seen of him doing doing deadlifts properly, you know, using a lot of weight, is him doing about 190 kilos, or I'm not going to do the conversion now, sorry guys, about 190 kilos on a trap bar deadlift, and the video is only a couple of reps, but let's conservatively, to be nice, assume that he can do that weight for 10 reps. Okay, now take off 20 or 30 kilos because it's a trap bar deadlift and not a regular barbell deadlift. That would make his max regular deadlift somewhere around 210, 220 kilos, right? Now, let's use me, for example. I'm 5'10". When I was at my biggest, at about 200 pounds, I was 16. My max deadlift was right around that number. It was 215 kilos, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I have a video of it up on the channel, but that was my max deadlift. Now, 16-year-old me, who trained to try to get strong, does that. You would expect that a 30-year-old man, okay, who would be training for strength and is 6'4" and 240 pounds would be able to outlift a young teenager if that was the goal, right? You look at the rest of Anthony Joshua's training. He trains now for boxing. He does a lot of neck bridging. He doesn't train for hypertrophy, which is fine because he's a boxer, but you wouldn't expect his sort of physique on a boxer. You would expect it on someone training to try and get jacked, which is not what he does, right? he also very clearly doesn't have a very good understanding of how this sort of thing works, because he made a statement in Men's Health magazine, for example, where he says people looking to lose weight shouldn't lift weights. So he doesn't understand that losing weight has to do with the amount of calories you take. He said just walk and run. Now, he's not completely wrong, because if you do cardio, you burn calories, which may put you in a deficit, but lifting weights has nothing to do with losing weight. What has to do with losing weight is whether you are in a caloric deficit or a caloric surplus. If you're in a surplus, you gain weight. If you're in a deficit, you lose weight. So Anthony's training is a little bro sciencey. Okay. He's not superbly strong. He doesn't train superbly special, regardless of how many articles there are that are like, oh, Anthony Joshua's super high intense program. It's like, no. Now, I know all the British fans are going to come after my ass just for saying that Anthony is on the juice, but here's the thing, guys. He doesn't train for hypertrophy. He doesn't train to get jacked. His training style doesn't reflect someone who's very strong and jacked. And so, okay, now there might be a select few of you say, yeah, but he gets tested all the time. You know, boxing is controlled. Guys, passing a drug test is about the easiest thing you can do. As long as you time it properly, there is shit you can take 3 days before a test that'll make you pitch up clean on the day. You can be clean on the day, okay? And this doesn't necessarily mean that he's taking large amounts of steroids, right? He might just be using SARMs. He might be using other things like diuretics just to help him, but I wouldn't think that, because he's a heavyweight boxer, and you know, they don't have to make weight specifically. There's no weight cap for them, so I doubt he's on that sort of stuff. But he's most definitely on sort of a low cycle, unless he's the absolute peak of, you know, human genetics, which, I mean, you know, maybe, but he'd have to outclass people who actually train to get big, which he doesn't do. Or at least he doesn't do it very effectively. So the point is that the chances of him being natty are very slim, because he doesn't train effectively for muscle size. He happens to just be jacked, and he's a boxer. Boxers have a focus on performance and fighting. I do boxing. I train quite often. I train every day. Since I've started boxing, I've lost a hell of a lot of weight and muscle, because you can't, it's very, very difficult to try to do those things simultaneously, right? He doesn't train optimally for getting jacked, yet he is jacked. It doesn't really make sense. And then consider the fact that as a boxer, right, his life and livelihood is dependent on him winning fights. Do you really think in that situation, when your life and your money and being able to live is dependent on you winning fights, that you wouldn't take every precaution to be able to win the fight? Okay, guys, for you who don't believe me with regards to the testing, take, for example, a couple of years back at the Olympics. They took samples, urine samples of different athletes, and they froze them. And then a couple of months after the initial test had been done, they developed a slightly better test, which could detect a few substances a couple of weeks longer on than the initial test could. And out of that sample size that they had of these athletes who they had frozen urine samples of, 84% of the ones that hadn't failed initially failed during the second test. Now they couldn't follow up on it, because obviously the policy is you know, you were tested on that specific test. Any tests done afterwards on the urine sample don't count. But the point is, these people then ended up failing, so many of them. So do you really think that the fact that he's being tested is going to stop him? Right? Secondarily, I don't think he has the best knowledge on how to get jacked and how to get strong, because he trains like a bit of a bro, which is fine. Thirdly, he doesn't train optimally for getting jacked, yet he is very, very, very saucy, and most definitely has an excellent amount of muscle mass in terms of where you would have to be genetically, yet doesn't really train for it. So it just doesn't really add up. But anyway, I think that brings us to the conclusion of the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, check out the Brewcast if you want more of this sort of content, and check out the Brewcast merch up for the new Look at My Fucking Guns apparel. thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time, and goodbye.